know that that warm welcome came from a place of deep patriotism and honor for my military service. So, thank you. And I want to be sure that I share that. So, if there are any veterans here, United States or our international friends, if you've worn your nation's uniform or are wearing your nation's uniform in the Reserve or the Guard, would you raise your hand, please? There's my veterans. How lucky are we to be here at this elite retreat, right? How lucky are we to be at this amazing convention and conference to sit here and meet and learn from and grow our businesses and our minds. What a glorious thing. My elite retreat actually started well before getting here to Florida. It started apparently when I got on the aircraft yesterday. So I'm in Denver, I get on the aircraft, I get upgraded to first class, right? So of course the flight attendant comes by, it's 10 o'clock in the morning and it's the old, would you like water or champagne? And now you're looking at the seatmate you don't know next to you and you're like, do I choose the champagne? Or is that gonna make me look weird, right? So I chose the champagne and my seatmate Kelsey, where are you at, Kelsey? I know you're in here somewhere. Kelsey initially grabbed water, but then she grabbed champagne. And we knew we were both coming to elite retreat, right? So we started chatting, and it ends up the entire first class cabin was coming to elite retreat. It was the most wonderful flight I've ever had. I met LaDawn from Denver, and I think I bought an $800,000 riverfront cabin from Diane. There you are, Diane. I'm calling you, girl. I'm ready for it. So what a wonderful thing. Thank you for making the flight so much fun. So we're super excited. We get here to the hotel. I go to check in. The front desk lady is super, energetic, and she's like, oh my gosh, you've got a really great room with a really great view. So I'm very excited. She gives me the keys. I run over to the elevator. I'm immediately kind of set back. I get into the elevator, crammed with a lot of people, and you saw the elevators here, right? They're the all-glass elevators that you can see through. And I gotta go up to the 6th floor. So I hit that button and I turn around. The elevator starts going up. I wanna look out at all of you who are at the bar having drinks and doing dinner. And I look out that window of the elevators, we're rising up, and I immediately jump back in fear from the window. Because I'm hit with two feelings. And the first is, I totally do this to myself all the time. I forget that I am absolutely terrified of heights. This is a true story. I am afraid of heights. We can talk about that over a beer or some champagne later. The second feeling that I'm hit with is, what in the world am I doing here? What in the world does an old washed up fighter pilot and a harried mother of 13-year-old twins possibly have that she can impart on a bunch of world-class professionals that work in real estate? And you might actually be asking yourself the same question, and that's totally fair. But as I was talking to Tom and his team and learning about this ecosystem, this family that you have, learning more about the real estate market and the industry and the profession, there was a certain theme that kept coming up, and it went something like this. Even in spite of the challenges of the pandemic in 2023 and all we've been through, these are the people who had the best performance. I'm here to tell you at this elite retreat, these are the best of the best in the real estate profession. We are slated literally to have the best performance ever in 2024 and beyond. And it was this word, the best, that kept coming up over and over again when describing all of you. And it's interesting because people look at my background and a lot of times they'll go, wow, you're a fighter pilot, that's pretty cool, 21 years doing that. You're a Thunderbird pilot, that's kind of elite, right? And then with a straight face, people will look at me, truly, and they will go, Nicole, what's it like to be the best? And usually I laugh inside because I, Nicole Malachowski, have never individually been the best at anything that I've ever done. But I have been a part of some of the best teams. And I have found over time that these best teams have a certain mindset. It's what I like to call the pushing the envelope mindset, which is what I want to talk to all of you about today. Whether you are a team of one, right, in your business, or you're leading a team of hundreds of real estate agents yourself, these things are going to be applicable to you. What's it like to be the best? Now, before we do that, I want to introduce you to somebody very important to me. Feast your eyes on this. Yes. Thank you, taxpayers of America. So this is my jet, right? This is the mighty F-15E Strike Eagle. This is the jet I flew in 3 operational fighter squadrons. I commanded a squadron of F-15Es. This is my pride and joy. I think she's absolutely beautiful. This is the jet that carried me and my friends safely in and out of combat more times than I could count. She is a beast, and yes, it's a she. So, okay? And you've all heard this term pushing the envelope before. It comes from aviation. It's all about taking the aircraft to its maximum performance, to its maximum capabilities. Now let me tell you a little bit more about this piece of technology, all right? This F-15E is capable of flying upwards of 50,000 feet, all right? She can pull 9 times the force of gravity and fly twice the speed of sound. Those are some pretty extraordinary capabilities, aren't they? And people ask me a lot, in your 21 plus year career, Nicole, what was the assignment you were most proud of? You know, they think I'm gonna say the Thunderbirds or working at the White House or flying in combat, and it's none of that. The thing I am most proud of is teaching brand new pilots, young lieutenants, how to fly this aircraft, right? Teaching other people, taking them up on their first flight is an extraordinary privilege and an extraordinary responsibility. And every time I would take a brand new lieutenant up on their very first flight, every single one of them would do the exact same thing. I'm in the back seat. I'll take off the aircraft the first time, right? Get them safely away from the ground, get them out into the training airspace, and then I'll say the words they've waited their whole life to hear. I'll say, you have the aircraft. And in that moment, they'll timidly shake the stick, their voice will quiver, and they'll say, I have the aircraft, right? Just like I did on my first flight. And then pretty much every single one of them to a T does the same thing on the first flight. They take this amazing piece of technology and they will fly her at 25,000 feet, 250 knots, and pull 2 Gs. Like, what a waste, right? What a waste of extraordinary capability. So as I talk to you today about this pushing the envelope mindset, I want you to think of yourself as this aircraft. I want you to think of the teams that you're on and that you're leading back home as this aircraft. I want you to think of this Tom Ferry ecosystem as this aircraft. And I discovered over time that this pushing the envelope mindset has 3 distinct traits. And the traits are courage, trust, and vulnerability. Now, none of these probably surprise you. But what I hope to do today is tell just a few different stories to give you a slightly different lens or a slightly different paradigm. Not only to look at your challenges through, but to look at the opportunities through. Ways that you can now view it as seizing the advantage. But before we do that, I want to show you a flying video because flying videos are cool, right? And there is an expectation that the fighter pilot shows up with a flying video, so I'm going to go ahead and check that square for you as well. But there's a point to this video too, all right? Now that's actually me you see on the screen in that beautiful red, white, and blue F-16. Thank you. And that is the colors red, white, and blue there of the United States Air Force Thunderbirds. Now, how many of you have seen the Air Force Thunderbirds fly? Yeah? All right, sweet. How many have seen the equally amazing US Navy Blue Angels fly? Yeah. Somebody has to be second best. It's okay. No, I'm kidding. Let me ask another question, all right? Where are my Canadian friends at? Yeah. I want to go on the record right here and say my favorite air show demonstration team in the whole world. I will drop everything to go watch the Canadian snowbirds fly. So I want to give you credit for that. But most of you have been to an air show, and if you haven't, you've heard about an air show. When the air show comes to town, it's exciting. It's a family event. Kids, parents, patriotic flags, there's the smell of jet fuel, there's technology, there's airplanes flying, right? There's funnel cake and warm Budweiser, like people, right? People are happy to go to air shows. And I get asked a lot, what's the best part about being a Thunderbird pilot? They think I'm gonna say the flying, that's not it. They think I'm gonna say the travel, that's not it. They think I'm gonna say all the celebrities and famous people, that's not really interesting to me, that's not it. The coolest part about being a Thunderbird pilot happened after we would land. So imagine we would do loops to music, right, for 30 minutes, and then when we would land, we would walk over to the audience or the autograph line, or we would sign autographs, take pictures, selfies, answer questions, discuss things, whatever. And there was always a theme that came up in the 2 years that I flew at these air shows. And it happened at the autograph line, and it always came from adults. It never came from kids. Adults would look at me straight-faced and go, wow, you're a fighter pilot, that's kind of cool. And then they'd be like, ooh, you're a Thunderbird pilot, that's pretty elite. And then they'd look at me like I had grown a third eye, and they'll be like, you're a woman Thunderbird pilot. That's really wild. And then with a straight face, they would look at me, seriously, and they would say, you must somehow be different than us. You must somehow be naturally gifted, Nicole. And my personal favorite, the path in front of you must have just been smooth. Woo-wee. Right, and I would smile, my Thunderbird smile, because I think they were trying to pay me a compliment. But inside I'm thinking, you gotta be kidding me, right? The path for me to the cockpit of that red, white, and blue F-16 was littered with twists, turns, bumps, bruises, mistakes, failures, turbulence, and headwinds all along the way. So when I watch this video with you today, it reminds me of a lesson I learned a long time ago, which is this. The path to success for any individual or for any team is always gonna be nonlinear. The path to success is always gonna be nonlinear. Now, this video was taken my first year on the team way back in 2006. It's about a minute and a half long. 50% of the in-cockpit video comes from inside of my jet, so it's your chance to fly as United States Air Force Thunderbird number 3. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, I gotta tell you, I do miss the flying, and if that isn't what a pushing the envelope mindset looks like, I don't know what is. That's all courage, trust, and vulnerability, and it's so fun to stand on stage and watch all of your faces when those 4 jets cross at the end. And people go, well, you must have an autopilot, a radar, a computer that helps you do that. And there's none of that. That's all individual pilot decision making, all individual pilot judgment, thousands of little micro decisions and micro movements going on. And for context, we cross with 1,000 miles per hour of closure at about 30 feet apart, which I think is about the width of this screen up here. So it is the real deal. So let's talk a little bit about this idea of courage. Courage to toss the hat, as Tom Ferry would say. Courage to overcome self-doubt, to break barriers in your own mind, to break barriers in status quo in the industry, right? Have you ever had a dream or a goal, personal or professional, that was so big, so gnarly, the idea of speaking that goal out loud literally gave you a knot in your stomach, right? The idea of actually pursuing it, no way. There's that voice in your head that says that dream is too big for you. Maybe you have an idea that would completely revolutionize the real estate industry, but you're thinking, I don't want to be the gal that rocks the boat. I don't want to be the guy that goes against the status quo, and so you keep that idea inside. I think we've all had moments like that. I had a dream growing up to one day become a United States Air Force Thunderbird. Let me give you a little bit of context about me. I actually grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada. Yeah, right? There are people from Las Vegas, Nevada, right? We have houses, schools, grocery stores. It's a very normal place, believe it or not. And what's really cool about growing up in Las Vegas, Nevada, right, is, people have certain expectations. You're going to go into the casino industry, whatever. I was way too short to be a showgirl, all right? So I had to go with plan B and become a fighter pilot, all right? But what's really cool about being a kid in Las Vegas, Nevada is there's an Air Force base there called Nellis Air Force Base. Its nickname is home of the fighter pilot. I grew up watching these fighter jets fly overhead every day thinking I want to do that someday. It's also home to the United States Air Force Thunderbirds. I distinctly remember being in high school, taking my brown bag lunch out onto the football field, eating my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and screaming overhead would come this 6-jet formation, smoke trails behind them, and I would shake with excitement, like kids do, and I would think there's people up there. I want to be one of those people. But I knew that it was hard. I mean, even back then I knew it was hard. It's hard enough to become a fighter pilot. It's even harder to become a Thunderbird pilot. For more context, in the United States active duty Air Force today, there's about 12,000 pilots. Of those, about 2,000 are fighter pilots, and of those 6, only 6 have the opportunity to ever fly as an Air Force Thunderbird. It's statistically improbable that anybody becomes a Thunderbird pilot, but clearly it's not impossible. But even though I had harbored this dream since I was a kid, the idea of speaking that dream out loud? No way. The idea of actively pursuing it? No way. Every time I would think about it, the voice in my head would say, other people become Thunderbird pilots, Nicole, not you. And I kept that dream inside. And I went about becoming a fighter pilot, flying that beautiful F-15E that I showed you earlier. I was just a regular fighter pilot out around the world. And every year the Air Force sends out an email at the exact same time that says the exact same thing. Ding into the inbox, we're looking for 3 new Thunderbird pilots. It's a 2-year assignment. 3 pilots are new and 3 pilots are experienced on their 2nd year. Ding into the inbox, we're looking for 3 new Thunderbird pilots. Here's the qualifications, here's the application. And even though I was qualified and harbored that dream since I was a kid, every year I would do the exact same thing. Ding into the inbox. Delete. That's right. Delete. Other people become Thunderbird pilots, Nicole, not you. And year after year, I deleted that message until 2005, I found myself ready to deploy for Operation Iraqi Freedom with every single certification and qualification you could have as a frontline fighter pilot, and ding into the inbox comes that same message. And for whatever reason that year, as I opened it up in 2005, there was like a light bulb that went off in my heart and in my mind. And I thought to myself, as I read it, why not me? Why not me? And I went to bed and I tossed and I turned, and the next day, with all the courage I could muster, the knot in my stomach, the voice in my head saying, don't do it. They're all gonna laugh at you. What if you fail? With all those words in my head, I walked into work and I finally spoke that dream out loud. I told my peers, my colleagues, my supervisors, my chain of command, I'm applying to be a Thunderbird. Whew, that was hard to do. And generally speaking, people were tickled. Generally speaking, in those first few days, people were pretty happy. But then as the days went by, if I had $1 for every time I heard this, Nicole, it's hard to be a Thunderbird. Nicole, you probably won't get picked. Nicole, they've never had a woman Thunderbird pilot before. Are you sure you want to do that? Over and over and over again, that voice of self-doubt started to grow, but I said, no, Nicole, stay focused. Put that application together. A big, gnarly, detailed application, as you might imagine for a job like this, right? A picture of me in uniform, a letter of why I want to be a Thunderbird, all of my annual HR personnel reports, all of my annual flying test or flying check ride scores. But the single most important thing, the thing that was weighted the most in this application, was a letter of recommendation from the first full bird colonel in our chain of command. Now, if you look at this picture, I am a 30-year-old young captain. At that time, a full bird colonel? Woo, that was intimidating. I tell people, I am now a retired full bird colonel. We are not a big deal. We're a dime a dozen, okay? But at the time, it was intimidating. So I got the brilliant idea, I'll just draft this letter for him. All I have to do is get his John Hancock. So I put this entire application together, and I remember this day like it was yesterday. I get this entire application, I drafted the letter for him with all the courage I could muster, the knot in my stomach, a feeling of nausea. I walk over to his staff, and I slide that application across the desk and say, I am applying to be a Thunderbird. This is what happened. The gentleman looked right back at me and said, Nicole, it's hard to be a Thunderbird. Nicole, you probably won't get picked. Nicole, they've never had a woman Thunderbird pilot before. And the colonel only has one recommendation he's allowed to give. So we're not sure we want to waste it. Boom, right? You can imagine how you felt, imagine how I felt standing there at that moment, right? Now let's pause for 1 second. I know this person. They were not trying to be mean. Here's what was happening in that moment. What was coming out was the unconscious bias that every single one of us needs to check ourselves on every single day. What was coming out were the cultural paradigms of the Air Force at that time, and what was coming out was other people's expectations about what I should or shouldn't be doing. And in that moment, here's what happened. I looked right at him and I said, I'm gonna remove this application, looked him in the eye and said, you're right. I am so sorry for having bothered you. No. True story, almost never became a Thunderbird pilot at all. And I walked out of there feeling embarrassed and ashamed. Other people become Thunderbird pilots, Nicole, not you. And I did what any self-respecting fighter pilot would do at that moment. I went across the street to the officers club and I grabbed a beer. So I'm over there thinking with my beer, talking to the guys, about the days flying, talking with our hands like fighter pilots do, thinking, thank goodness I didn't put myself out there. Thank goodness I didn't risk failure. Who were you, Nicole, to think you could be a Thunderbird? And in that moment, a door opens over here and in walks the wing commander. Now the wing commander is 6'5". This guy is a brigadier general. He is the man's man, right? The poster child of the macho male fighter pilot. He walks over and for whatever reason starts talking to me. Now this is extremely intimidating for a young captain talking to a brigadier general. To this day, I don't know why he talked to me or what we were talking about, okay? I was like CEO, walked amongst the people today, check, I don't know, right? So he's talking to me, I'm drinking my beer, trying to be cool, and in that moment, over walks my immediate supervisor, a guy by the name of Dan Debris, call sign Trash. Trash Debris, do you get it now? Okay, we'll work on call signs, Trash comes over and he says, General, did you know Nicole's applying to be a Thunderbird? Oh, I'm like, Ixnay, on the Underbird say, this is terrible. Neither of these gentlemen knew what had happened across the street and that I had removed my application and decided not to apply. And in that moment, the general looks down at me, way down at me, and he goes, that's great, Nicole, how's your application going? I'm just mortified, right? I take a swig of my beer, I look way up at him and I say, sir, it's hard to be a Thunderbird. Sir, I probably won't get picked. Sir, they haven't had a woman before, so I don't want to waste anybody's time. Everything everyone else had said had taken up room in my own mind was now literally coming out of my own mouth. It's almost embarrassing to share that story, but I'm being vulnerable here in front of all of you. And in that moment, General Mark Matthews gave me one of the single greatest gifts. It's a set of words I use every time I get that knot in my stomach or that voice in my head, and it's what I want you to remember the next time you think that dream, goal, or idea is too big for you. He looked down at me and he said, Nicole, nobody wants to lead a scripted life. Nobody wants to lead a scripted life. And he walked away and left me in the most awkward silence with those words. And with those words, he lifted the weight of the world off my shoulders. He told me it was okay to dream big. It was okay to break barriers, to go against the status quo, that it was okay to risk failure in pursuit of personal or professional growth. That it was okay to be different. That it was okay to try, to toss the hat, if you will. And in that moment, right, it occurred to me, what's the worst thing that's gonna happen if I don't make it? I get to go back flying that beautiful F-15E Strike Eagle that I showed you. I went home and I tossed and I turned and I thought about what he had to say. And of course, with enough of that encouragement and those words from him, I was able to garner the courage to go back in, to put that application in, and of course, the rest is history. But it's interesting here, what are the lessons here? Think about it, whose Mark Matthews are you? Whose Mark Matthews can you be? Where are you looking for talent and ideas? Because I guarantee you, nobody saw me coming. And I get asked a lot, did you ever get the letter of recommendation from the colonel? No, I did not. But I did get a letter of recommendation from the general, so that worked out. So we talked a little bit about courage. Let's talk a little bit about the trust of this pushing the envelope mindset. And I'm talking the type of trust that allows you to fly at 500 feet, 500 miles an hour, upside down, 3 feet away from 5 other planes type of trust, all right? Now I show up in Las Vegas, Nevada, first day at the Thunderbird hangar, right? Home hometown girl done good. One of only 6 pilots in the Air Force that gets to do that. I've been a fighter pilot 8 years. I had every certification and qualification you could have. I thought I knew everything about trust. I was in for a lot of learning. I remember that very first day I walked into that red, white, and blue Thunderbird hangar, wind in my hair, sounds of Top Gun in my head. I said, I am Nicole Malachowski, your new pilot. I'm ready to go fly. I was met with nothing but stares and silence. I thought maybe they didn't hear me. I leaned into the senior enlisted guy. I said, hi, I'm Nicole Malachowski. People go to air shows to watch us fly. I'm ready to go fly. And he looked right at me and said, quote, you don't get to touch our jet until I say you can. End quote. I stood back. He says, you don't get to touch our jet until you get to know each and every one of us, our names, our spouses' names, our kid names, our hometown, our hobbies. Further, you, Miss Pilot, need to go do a little mini internship with every other career function on this team so you have a better understanding of where you fit into this highly interdependent, complex team. So you have a better understanding how if you don't do your job to a level of excellence, it impacts all of us. And how if we don't do our job to a level of excellence, it impacts you. You see, there were 125 people from 25 different career functions that came together to make that mission happen. And all it took was one of us, just one, not doing our job to the highest level of excellence, and that entire elite mission would fall apart. The Thunderbirds taught me a valuable lesson very early on, and it's this. Nothing of significance is ever accomplished alone. Nothing of significance is ever accomplished alone. My little sister Laura, she's a real estate agent in Denver, right? I understand how personal this is. Providing families with homes, providing a roof over a head, safety, security, supporting communities and the local economy. What you do is significant. And it's honorable and it's noble and it's good. Don't ever forget that. And so for 3 weeks I didn't fly. I turned wrenches under the jets with crew chiefs. I learned about strategic communications from public affairs. I learned about the budget from finance. All of those good things, logistics train, all of that. And after 3 weeks of not flying, then and only then would they let me touch that jet. And I remember that day like it was yesterday too. I went out there to that beautiful red, white, and blue F-16. And as I strode out to the jet that first time, I instinctually started to do the walk around. Now the walk around is the first thing a pilot always does. They're checking to make sure the aircraft is safe and airworthy. I had been flying since I was 12 out at North Las Vegas Airport. I'd been a fighter pilot 8 years. It was always the first thing that I did. And so instinctually, as I walk out to the jet, I start to do the walk around. I met with these 2 smiling faces, Nate on the left, Dave on the right. Nate jumps between me and the aircraft, very animated. He puts his hands up to stop me. He goes, ma'am, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing my walk around, like I always do. And he says, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, no, you don't do that here. That's my job. I'm trained to do it. I've already done the walk around. The aircraft is safe and airworthy. Get in. I'm looking at him thinking, I just met you. Who are you? How am I supposed to trust you with my life? Why do things have to be different? I've always done it this way. You ever felt like that? Yeah. And then Dave ups the ante. Dave looks at me and says, ma'am, not only do we pre-flight your jet for you, we pre-flight all of your life support equipment as well. Life support equipment, as in my life. He says, we pre-flight your G-suit, your harness, your helmet, your ejection seat, ma'am. I've already done that. The aircraft is safe and airworthy. Get in. Now, if I'm standing here looking at all of you, I gotta tell the truth. The truth is, every time I came out to that jet during training season, I'd see these 2 great Americans, totally skillful, these beautiful smiling faces, and I would get a knot in my stomach and feel nothing but a feeling of resentment towards my own teammates. Who are you? How am I supposed to trust you? Why do things have to be different? I've always done it this way. We had a 3-month-long training program, and then twice a day we'd fly, sometimes 3 times a day, sometimes even on Saturdays. And every time I came out and I saw them, I felt the same way until 2 months into this 3-month-long program, I had a bit of an aha moment. I came out into that hot Las Vegas sun, and Nate, he was down on his hands and knees, dripping sweat, polishing the wheel well of this F-16 to the finest detail. And it hit me as I stared at him. He takes as much pride in doing his job as I do. He takes as much pride in doing his job as I do. Some of you might be a team of 1, right? You haven't grown your teams yet. Maybe you will, maybe you choose not to, I don't know. But we all have teams, right? What about the person that's helping you stage the house, the person that helps with your marketing, right? What about all of the people, that are in your community giving you referrals? Oh, you're on a team, okay? We're all on a team, all right? So the next time you have one of those moments where maybe you're feeling a little bit of stress, like why did she ask for that? They asked for another email. I don't want to go to another meeting. I could do it faster if I just did it myself. I want you to step back. Remember this story, take a deep breath and afford your teammate a moment of grace by putting your ego aside and letting those teammates take as much pride in doing their job as you do. And Dave, on the right, he had a really important job. I would climb up into the jet before I would start it. He would climb up a ladder and look down at me. His job was to strap me into the ejection seat. A connection under Thunderbird processes I wasn't allowed to physically check. Dave Batterson, the only thing standing between life or death should something catastrophic happen to me, Dave Batterson. He would climb up that ladder. He would strap me into the ejection seat. He would check those connections. I would check that he was checking those connections, right? And he started this cool thing with me about 2 months into it. He'd look down at me, he'd strap me in, we'd clasp hands, and he would say, rock and roll, 3. Rock and roll meant have a good flight. 3, that was me, my name, my position on the team. And day after day, we did this until 2 months into this 3-month-long program. I had another trust aha moment. Dave climbs up the ladder, he straps me in, rock and roll, 3. And for the first time ever in my 8 years as a professional fighter pilot, I looked back at my crew chief and I said, thanks for letting me borrow your jet. Thanks for letting me borrow your jet. That's all right, let's give it up. How is it I had gone my entire career and profession as a pilot, and I had never stopped to acknowledge and show gratitude to the very people who enabled and empowered and resourced me every single day to do what I do? When was the last time you stopped in your professional life or your personal life to acknowledge and show gratitude to all those who enable and empower and resource you to do what you do? And a lot of times we think this acknowledgement needs to come in the form of the annual award ceremony or the big superior performer award at the end of the year, and those things are important and we should do that. But what I'm talking about here is those little day-to-day interactions, those little moments that say, I see you and I appreciate you. Maybe it's just those words. Maybe it's a phone call, an email, a pat on the back, an extra Starbucks, my personal favorite, and apparently you guys too, a handwritten note. Because it is in those moments of acknowledgement and appreciation that trust is built, and with trust comes loyalty. And my friends, when you have loyalty, you will always get increased measures of performance. Take the time to acknowledge and show gratitude to all those who enable and empower and resource you to do what you do. Now, sticking on this idea of trust, this is actually my favorite formation. Every pilot has their own. This just happens to be mine, okay? This is what's called the Delta formation. It's the only time in the air show that all 6 jets get together, all right? It happens at the very end of the air show. So when we land, it's the last thing on the audience's mind. So when we go over to the autograph line, we would get asked a lot of questions about this formation. Isn't it beautiful? It is, isn't it? It's very powerful. It's very graceful looking. It's 6 jets at 500 feet, 500 miles an hour, upside down, 3 feet away from each other. It's glorious, right? And the number one question we would get asked, and it was awesome, the number one question we would get asked is, what does it take to build this level of trust? What a great question, right? What does it take to build that level of trust? You know, I had never met or flown with these 5 other pilots before. They were just random fighter pilots out there around the world. We all, were doing our job like the taxpayers of America demand, right? And we all got picked for this elite mission, crammed together and told to go do this. Now, where's my friend Erica from Denver? Where you at, Erica? Are you in the front row? There, friend, there. Okay, so Erica is a real estate agent in Denver, and she's my sister's BFF real estate agent. So her and I were having, dinner last night, and it was actually the first time I met you in person. It's like, hi, Erica, nice to meet you. Let's go fly at 500 feet, 500 miles an hour, upside down, 3 feet away from each other. Are you in? No, I think you would do it, though. I think you would do it. But it's asking a lot, right? Hi, nice to meet you. Let's go do this. So when people ask me, Nicole, what does it take to build this level of trust? They think I'm going to say, well, we have a training syllabus. It's 3 months long. It's crawl to walk to run. Okay, that's part of the answer. You all have training programs, probably when you onboard people to your team or whatever. They think I'm going to say, well, there's process and procedure, there's minimum altitudes and maximum airspeeds, just like I know we have in the real estate profession. They're going to say there's certain certifications and qualifications you need as a fighter pilot in order to do this, just like you need in the real estate profession. And all of those things kind of touch on how you build trust, but I don't believe any of those get to the heart of the answer. When people ask me, Nicole, what does it take to build that level of trust? The answer is this. You build trust by being trustworthy. You build trust by being trustworthy. I don't know if you've ever felt like this in a team environment. I know I have, so I will use myself as the example. You join a team, you're working with a lot of people, you look over here and you go, that guy over there, he needs to prove to me that I can trust him. I'm not sure I can trust that gal. I could do it faster if I just did it myself. You ever felt like that? I'm here to say that elite performers like all of you, elite teams like you're on and that you're leading back home, look at trust completely differently. Trust does not come to you from other people. Trust emanates outward from you, from your actions, from your decisions, and from your behaviors. If you take a look on the screen here, right, you got the lead aircraft up there at the top. Maybe that's you leading your team. Maybe it's a small team, maybe it's a team of one, maybe it's a team of 100. Each and every person in this picture flying a very distinct role. Each and every one of you called to a very distinct role with a certain level of accountability and a certain level of responsibility. That beautiful formation comes together because we are all flying in alignment behind the leader who's setting the vision, the direction, the speed. Let me ask you a question. How many airplanes do you see in this picture? Sir, how many do you see?
6.
You see 6. You know what a Thunderbird pilot sees?
1.
1. Any Thunderbird pilot will tell you in a picture like this, how many aircraft do you see? We will always say 1. We are flying in alignment as a team in the same direction at the same speed in perfect alignment, plus or minus 1 degree, plus or minus 1 to 2 knots of airspeed. That's how that beautiful formation came together. Where are you in this formation? What does your formation look like that you're leading? There's the lead aircraft. I'm immediately down to his right here. I was Thunderbird number 3, right wing. Right? If I was sick, that spot went empty. If my jet was broke, that spot went empty. It was not as simple as swapping right wing from left wing. Those are 2 completely different aerodynamic maneuvers. I was to be Thunderbird 3. My veterans in here know I was to be the SME, the SME, the subject matter expert. You are the subject matter expert, striving each day to become a master of your craft. You want to be so dependable, so reliable, in all circumstances, that if anyone across this ecosystem, anyone on your team back home, especially a customer or client, has a question about what it is that you do, you want them to instinctually pick up that phone and call you. You build trust by being trustworthy. Now, there's something else I think about when I look at this picture. And it's a phrase that every single American Air Force fighter pilot knows. It's the last thing a flight lead says to their wingman before we go fly. So imagine, we have planned up this complex combat mission, maybe over Iraq. We've gotten together as a team and we have briefed up this mission over Iraq. We have gone to life support. We've put on our G-suit, our harness, our helmets. We are striding out to our jets, wind in our hair, right? And just as we start to split to our individual jets, the very last thing I would say to my wingman is this. When in doubt, always honor the wingman contract. When in doubt, always honor the wingman contract. What do I mean by that? The wingman contract, those 2 words, that phrase, means everything to an American Air Force fighter pilot. It is our unspoken bond and our unspoken promise to each other. It is our gentleman's handshake and our gentlewoman's agreement that says this is who we are. We have expectations of each other's professional behavior. We have expectations of each other's standards of performance and execution. And under this wingman contract, I promise you, I will hold myself accountable to that standard. And out of caring and compassion and a shared commitment to what we're trying to do here, I promise to hold you accountable to that standard. The wingman contract, my friends, is the culture. And a lot of times when I bring up this idea, culture, we talk about it, sometimes people roll their eyes in the back of their head. They go, that's really fluffy, that's really nebulous. I'm here to say culture is everything. Culture is the vibe, the expectations. Culture is the execution. And culture on a team is alive, it's living, and it needs to be nurtured by you every single day. Ask yourself, is what I'm about to say or do in alignment with that wingman contract? And if it is, move out. And move out with confidence, knowing that you're in alignment with where everyone is going. Whether you're a team of one in this Tom Ferry ecosystem or you're leading a team of hundreds, it doesn't matter. A wingman contract in most organizations and companies, because there's a lot of different ones represented in here, usually comes in the form of a mission statement, a vision statement, my personal favorite, a list of values or principles that you strive to live by, that every interaction with each other and that every interaction with your customer and clients adheres to. What does the wingman contract look like back home on your team? What is the wingman contract you have with your Tom Ferry coach? What is the wingman contract you have as a professional real estate agent with each other? Right? The beauty of a wingman contract in an organization or team is that it applies to everyone equally, from your newest, youngest intern hire all the way up through your CEOs and the mid-level managers and everybody equally. Why does it matter? It matters because a wingman contract will enable and empower people at all levels of an organization to make independent, agile decisions at the exact time and place that your customer and client needs it, that will always be in alignment with where you're going. When in doubt, always honor the wingman contract, because I don't know about you, but I don't have time to call yet another meeting every time a decision needs to be made. I could care less about putting another email into somebody's inbox. Apparently, I should make it an email story, right? The story, post it, right? Right? I want things to be efficient, because it's not okay for my friend Erica and I to be at 500 feet, 500 miles an hour, upside down, 3 feet away from each other, for me to look at Erica and go, Erica, what is it again that we're doing here? Right? When in doubt, always honor the wingman contract. Now, one of the hardest things I had to learn how to do as a Thunderbird pilot was learn to fly like a Thunderbird pilot. There's a reason it's a 3-month-long training program. We even fly on weekends 3 times a day. It's pretty intense. And like most training programs, it starts out easy. And as that training program moves on, it gets more and more complicated. It gets hard. So as I was learning to be a Thunderbird pilot, when we started out, I loved this formation on the left, the diamond formation, my favorite. Anytime I would learn a new maneuver from the diamond formation, I would only have to try it 10, 11, 12 times. Light bulb would go off, boom, we would move on with the training syllabus. And that syllabus got harder and harder, and about 2 months into it, I met my nemesis, the formation on the right. I'm not even gonna look at the picture, I'll let you do that. That's called trail formation. I never liked trail formation. I never got comfortable in trail formation. It's 4 aircraft stacked vertically on top of each other. I've got, can you see all 4 aircraft there? I am third down in the middle of the sandwich. I got 2 aircraft above me. The closest is 3 feet from the top of my canopy. I got 4th aircraft underneath me. I cannot see 3 feet away, who's 100% dependent on me for their safety. One of the reasons I really didn't like trail is as we're stacked vertically on top of each other, all it takes is one pilot, just one, letting off by 0.1 the force of gravity, and that entire formation can accordion and collapse on itself. It is my opinion that that is the formation where both the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels accept the highest level of risk. And there was a certain maneuver I was trying to learn about 2 months into this training program called the trail to diamond roll. Here I am at the height of my experience, the height of my skill set, supposedly an elite pilot, and no matter how many times I tried the trail to diamond roll, I couldn't figure it out. 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 60 times, 100 times, I couldn't figure it out. How is this happening to me at the height of my career? Why is this happening to me right now? To top it off, everybody else had it figured out. I'm going to show you a quick clip of me struggling during training season, but let's talk for a second. The trail to diamond roll. It's exactly like it sounds. And all of you have seen Top Gun 2 Maverick, so everyone's a fighter pilot these days, right? Trail to diamond roll. We're going to start out in trail. We're going to roll the left. We're going to end up in diamond. What you need to know is it's the single hardest maneuver for the number 3 position to fly. Out of sheer aerodynamics, I have to power up more, roll more, and pull more than anybody else in order to make this maneuver happen. In fact, it's so complicated and so high risk that as of last year, the Thunderbirds no longer fly this maneuver. Now take a look on the screen. I told you we're in trail, 4 aircraft stacked on top of each other 3 feet away. Does that look like 3 feet? No. No, we're at about 8-foot spacing there. Why are we at 8-foot spacing right now? Because I can't figure it out, right? So I'm going to show you a clip of us at 8-foot spacing. As we start the roll, you're going to see basically me, well, fly away from the formation and do my own air show. So here's me failing and flailing. I hope you enjoy it. You're thinking, Nicole, it looked pretty good to me, right? Yeah, I know. It's torture for me to watch that. That was horrible, okay? I promise. It was like a D+, C- effort. Imagine, we're supposed to be at 3 feet. I got outwards of 24 to 30 feet there, 8 to 10 times outside of the standard of excellence, 8 to 10 times away from the wingman contract, right? It was terrible. And don't think I couldn't see the headlines now. First woman Thunderbird pilot fails out of training. Oh, that pressure was there too, you know it, right? And I remember going into the debrief that day and feeling really horrible about myself. We had done this maneuver more than any other maneuver. We have a syllabus we have to get through. We have a graduation date because there are air showers in Orlando we have to go to, right? They're on the calendar. And I remember going into debrief that day and the guys looked at me and they just exhaled, exasperated. Oh. Nicole, we cannot waste any more time on this maneuver. We have to move on with the training syllabus. So instead of flying the maneuver at 3 feet, we'll just fly the maneuver at 8 feet. Ugh, right? Horrible feeling. The wingman contract is 8 feet. Our customers and clients have an expectation of excellence at 3 feet. The standard you are willing to walk past is the standard you're willing to accept. The standard that you walk past is the standard that you're willing to accept. And I knew at that moment, psychologically and mentally, I was not going to be able to move on. And I sat there feeling horrible about myself, my pride, my ego, all of it on display in front of these amazing pilots and fabulous teammates. And I finally took a deep breath, and I remember this day like it was yesterday. I said the 3 hardest words of my career. I took a deep breath, I looked at these 5 guys, and I said, I need help. I need help. Oh, what is it about those 3 words that are so hard for us to get out of our mouths? What is it about those 3 words that make us feel so weak and vulnerable that we're not all in or that we're not a team player? Why do we do that to ourselves? There's not a single person in this room that has their arms around every single aspect of the real estate industry. Isn't that the beauty of this Tom Ferry ecosystem? Isn't that the beauty of it? Right? That's good for you to have each other. Isn't that the beauty of having this coach? And I remember in that moment when I said help, my teammates looked at me like, oh, Nicole said the H word, right? And my teammates stopped. And for the next 2 days, including the weekends, they came in away from their families. For the next 2 days, we did that maneuver hundreds of times until I got it right. Because it was the right thing to do by me as a teammate, it was the right thing to do by our wingman contract, and it was the right thing to do by our customer and client, the audience on the ground who had an expectation of 3 feet of excellence. And I'm happy to say 2 days later, I figured it out. I still didn't like flying it. I still didn't get comfortable flying it. I'm gonna show you a clip of me getting it right. You can see the reflection of my helmet right down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Take a look closely there. There's 2 jets above me. Do you see them both? Yeah, the closest now really is 3 feet from the top of the canopy. Don't you forget, you got a 4th aircraft underneath you, 3 feet away. You cannot see who's 100% dependent on you for his safety. Now take a look at my hands here, all right? The trail to diamond roll. Here's what you're gonna see. All right, we're all gonna start to roll to the left. And at about 90 degrees, you're gonna see the aircraft above you slide down and to the left. And at that instant, our wingtips are gonna cross at about 12 to 18 inches apart. So watch for that. Here's me getting it right. I hope you enjoy it. And it felt good to get it right. felt good to get it right, but if I'm being vulnerable here, because that's a trait of the pushing the envelope mindset, what felt better? What felt better was that my teammates stopped and helped me. Not from a place of judgment or shame, but from a place of caring and compassion and shared commitment to what we were trying to do. Ask for and offer help. You are never too good, too experienced, right? Too high up in the organizational chart, too proud to ask for help when you need it, and it is never beneath any of us to offer help. Never from a place of judgment or shame, but always from a place of caring and compassion and shared commitment. Ask for and offer help. Y'all have stuck with me for about 45 minutes. If Tom's backstage, I'm about 3 minutes behind Tom because I was just getting into it up here, all right? So I know he's gonna come up. What I wanna tell you guys is that after this last story, we're actually gonna do Q&A. You can see that there's microphones here lined up. I wanna see the brave people. Whoever stands up, I'm happy to give an autograph signed picture to if you would like it, all right? If you're nice and brave. I hope you can see I am an open book. No question is off limits, all right? Let's finish with a story on vulnerability. I like to end with this one because it applies to you as professionals in the industry, but it also applies to you as human beings. And you guys, by your very nature, are in a human being industry. You are people, right? We all have a story, and there is always a spot and room for humanity in the workplace. One of the hardest things I had to learn how to do as a Thunderbird pilot was learn to stay in formation when we encountered turbulence. Oh yes, turbulence, right? Now you're thinking, Nicole, you've been a pilot since you were 12, a fighter pilot for 8 years. You had flown in turbulence many times. Why did turbulence concern you? Oh yeah, dudes, I had flown in turbulence many times, but as my friend Erica knows, the first time you encounter turbulence at 500 feet, 500 miles an hour, upside down, 3 feet away from 5 other jets, that is indeed an eye-opening moment, right? Now, are there any pilots in here? I know there's pilots in here. There's 2,000 people in here. All right, my pilots, hopefully you can back me up or heckle me. That's fine as well. Turbulence is fascinating to pilots, right? Because turbulence, we have weather models that can tell us when the atmosphere is right for turbulence, but those weather models can never predict exactly where turbulence is going to happen, how severe it's going to be, or how long that turbulence is going to last. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Right? I mean, the pandemic, right? A big giant pocket of turbulence for all of us personally and of course professionally. But I've flown in turbulence many times, so I'm out there in training season. It's a blue sky and tailwind kind of day. I'm in my favorite diamond formation. We go out to the jets and the weather guy comes running out super excited. He gets to do his job. He says, guess what? The weather model is right for turbulence. I said, thanks, Sparky. I've flown in turbulence many times. No big deal. So we're out there cruising around, right? We're cruising around. Everything's going great. And boom, we hit that turbulence. And the second we hit it, with jets 3 feet away, my whole body tensed up. I got a knot in my stomach. I started dripping sweat. And instinctually, I gripped the stick extra hard. And the turbulence bumped. And I wanted to fight to stay in position, so I put an input on the stick. The turbulence bumped again, and that next input got bigger. The turbulence bumped again, and that input got bigger and bigger and bigger, until I got into something called a PIO, or a pilot-induced oscillation. It makes for a very ugly air show. All right, it is impossible for your teammates to fly next to, and in fact, I was making things worse. But isn't that our instincts as human beings when change and turbulence comes along? Do you ever try to control the uncontrollable? Do you ever try to resist that change? I'm here to argue that that's a very inefficient use of our limited time and talent and treasure. But there I was, fighting, resisting that turbulence, fighting to stay in position, making things worse. We finally land. Literally, there was salt in my eyes from the sweat. I wiped my brow. I thought, thank God I didn't hit anybody. Literally, that was my thought. Thank God we didn't hit each other. And we go into debrief. And I'm like, still kind of shaken up. The number 4 pilot on the team, this guy on the far right, number 4, Steve Horton. He's on his 2nd year. He's the experienced guy. He's my instructor. Steve Horton, call sign Dallas, right? Dallas looks at me and he goes, gosh, Nicole, what were you doing out there? You were a mess. You were all over the place. I couldn't fly next to you. You weren't adhering to the wingman contract. What was going on? I said, Steve, didn't you feel the turbulence, Steve? I was fighting to stay in position, Steve. And I remember this moment like yesterday. Steve Horton, a dear friend of mine to this day, he looked right at me with the biggest smirk on his face. And he said, oh, we forgot to tell you the secret. I looked at him like, I'm sorry, what? He says, we forgot to tell you the secret for how you stay in position when we encounter turbulence. Would you like to know the secret? I'm like, yeah, bro, information I could have used yesterday. He says, the secret is this: we promise each other, no matter what position you're flying in, no matter what formation we're in, no matter what maneuver we're about to do, we promise each other as a team that when any one of us encounters turbulence in our own jet, we will immediately loosen our grip. The answer, Nicole, is to loosen your grip. Right? The last of my instincts as a pilot in that moment, and the opposite of our instincts as human beings when change and headwinds and turbulence come along. So I went home and I tossed and I turned and I thought all about it. Steve Horton, right? He's the smart guy. He must be right. I thought all about it. We go out the next day, blue sky and tailwind kind of day. My favorite formation, weather guy, super excited to tell us that the atmosphere is right for turbulence. I take him seriously this time. And we're out there cruising along. Everything's going great. And boom, we finally hit that turbulence. And I start to tense my body and I start to grip that stick. But I'm like Steve Horton, the Yoda of the team. Loosen your grip. And I let go with 1, 2, 3 fingers and I start flying the jet just like this. And guess what happened? Yeah, I stayed in position. We all did. We stayed in perfect alignment and eventually we exited the turbulence because turbulence doesn't last forever. And the beauty of the whole thing is our customer and client, the audience on the ground, never even knew. It's okay to loosen your grip. I'm not giving you permission to let go of the stick, all right? What I am saying is choose to control the things you can control. Proactively choose to be efficient with your limited time and talent and treasure. It's okay to loosen your grip. Courage, trust, and vulnerability, I think, lie at the heart of this pushing the envelope mindset. This is called an elite retreat for a reason, because you are the elite. You are the best of the best, and elite people always know that every day you can do more to become a master of your craft. This is what we talked about, my friends. You're welcome to take a picture to remind yourself of this idea of tossing your hat and choosing that unscripted life, that nothing of significance is accomplished alone, the power of gratitude. Realizing that trust starts with you, your actions, your decisions and behaviors. Honoring that wingman contract across this Tom Ferry ecosystem, across this profession, and in your teams back home. Having the humility to ask for help and the grace to offer it, and reminding each other to loosen your grip. We're about to go to Q&A. I better see some bodies lining up behind those microphones. I leave you with my favorite picture from my career. The jet on the left is my husband. The jet on the right is me. I know. Oh man, that man has put up with me for 23 years this year. Not a lot of married people have that photo, right? And the parents in the audience know that our 13-year-old twins are not impressed by this at all. But they are impressed with how many Instagram followers I have. So I want to tell you guys, I'm trying as a Gen Xer to do this social media thing. I was taking notes back there listening to Tom. I've got some faker accounts out there, so please use the verified accounts if you're going to do that. If you don't get your question asked or answered, I would love to continue the conversation with you on social media. So before Tom comes back out and we go to Q&A, I want to wish you the very best. What a gift it is to be part of this team. What a gift it is to have each other and these coaches. Amen. Amen. If you go back home and you do one thing differently because of someone you met, something you heard, something you learned, this will indeed have been this valuable investment of your time, talent, and treasure. So with that, I welcome Tom up on the stage or down there.
Oh, there's a lot of questions. This is good.